Republicans, because you're not going to get the Dems. They're not going to do it.
No.
They don't even know what a constitution is,
No.
right?
Right.
But they put pressure, we were putting pressure on, and they were getting pressure from across the state. They had a hearing yesterday, and the Salt Lake County Council was really cool about it. They said, we're not going to enforce the mask mandate, the council said, because they didn't want to cause they didn't want that to be disruptive in the meeting, And they had a ton of parents show up, a ton of people show up and speak against the mandate. There was enough influence that Laurie has switched her vote. So during the meeting, they agreed to have a meeting this week to vote. Okay? That is people standing up and making a difference. Okay? We have to be doing that. Okay? Otherwise, we will become slaves. And we already are to a degree. Okay? Because most people think that they can do that. I mean, even today, I've got my grandkids in a private school that teaches the Constitution, and they're telling my grandson, he has to wear a mask because somebody tested positive in his grade. So he's being punished. My grandson, who's healthy, you have to wear a mask today. And unfortunately, they didn't know not to. I go, don't put a mask in that classroom. But anyway, they violated many laws. What other laws are they violating when they tell you to wear a mask? Off the top of your head. In the Constitution. We'll make it just in the Constitution. Amendment 4 talks about your person.
Oh, yeah.
Search and seizure.
You have the right to your person, privacy to your body.
Yeah.
No one can tell you what to put on it. No one can tell you what to inject in it. That is in the 4th Amendment of the Constitution. You have to understand those things just off the top of your head, because everything that's going on right now is applicable to that, right? And then the 13th Amendment is the slavery. It's your will. They can't force you to do something against your will. And the 9th Amendment applies to your children. They can't take away your parental rights. They can't tell you what to do with your child. See, so we have to know those things because that's what you have to tell them. You're not allowed to do this. Okay, and if you do, you're liable under this Supreme Court ruling from 1978.
We want those on
We can sue you.
Yeah.
We can sue you.
Can you send that to me, Kris?
Uh-huh.
Just what you've taken.
I'll text you.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question?
So, anyway.
Would it also, like the 4th Amendment is your private property, your private rights, and it also goes to your private medical records and papers and things like that, right? Which the HIPAA supposedly was protecting, but now everybody's on
There's no HIPAA. It's like you gotta give your test results.
Yeah, and so for that child to have to reveal that he even tested positive, right?
Think about it. The Supreme Court, their superior law, and Article 6 tells us that the U.S. Constitution is the law supreme. So HIPAA, where's HIPAA? Is HIPAA above the Constitution or below it?
Well, it's below it, but I
Exactly.
said they're even breaking their own.
It doesn't matter. The
Medical.
thing is, they can,
Ah.
because guess what? They made that law.
Oh,
What one
okay.
creates, one can break. One can change. They
Okay.
can't do that. That's where it was created.
Unless you go to the,
So supreme law is God's law.
okay,
No one can change God's law. That's why you go to the Constitution.
and the inalienable rights, right? that you can't-
Unalienable. Yeah.
Unalienable.
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 Is from
I know.
Alien.
I know.
You have to.
So
Alienable.
Chris, on your grandson, he's in a private school, so they can require him to wear a mask, can't they?
Well,
But if he's in
actually,
a public
under
school-
section, this is where you need to know U.S. code. Think about it. The law is on our side.
Okay.
The law was designed to
So the school
protect
can't make a rule
our
above
rights.
the law.
Even though it's a private school, it's a business open to the public. Anybody can decide to put their child in that school and when they do so, they now are subject to Section 42 of the U.S. Code, which is a civil rights law, that says you cannot discriminate against anybody in a public accommodation.
So that's any
Okay?
business.
You cannot discriminate on the basis of color, gender, gender now, color, gender, religious belief, and yeah, so that's the key thing is the religious belief, and that's what I've got to talk to my son-in-law about because That's the other part of the code that now they're in US code that they're violating, which is federal law, and you can't discriminate, right? We're familiar with the Civil Rights Act,
Oh, yeah,
right? We're
right.
old enough. You know, you can't discriminate against somebody's color or religion, okay? So many people have even the LDS Church, Article 11, talks about the preservation of freedom of conscience. And in the state of Utah, they have protected that. And you don't have to have any organized religion sign off and say that you're a part of their church.
Didn't the
You
church
have,
come out and say, though, that they would not be a part of a religious exemption?
in other states where it's required, see, it's not required in Utah, and this is where you have to know your laws, and so it's really important. I mean, we have to just know these things, because nobody knows it, and so they get away with bullying us and telling us what to do because we don't know. So in Utah, they protect the right of conscience. Okay, that is part of the First Amendment. It's how you believe. People left England because they wanted to worship as they believed they wanted to. It wasn't even some of them were part of organized religions, but it's what they personally believed. And that's what this is all about. I mean, you have you have your own personal relationship with Jesus Christ. It's not based on you being a member of a church. Can anybody access Jesus? Do they have to be in a church?
No.
No. I mean, Joseph Smith is a great example of someone who accessed Jesus and Heavenly Father outside of an organized church. Okay, so that is just a natural God-given right.
Kris, it was interesting, this
Or
last
Billy.
Saturday, you know, at the Eagle Forum, they opened with Mike Lee, Senator Lee, and then they had pretty much the whole congressional delegation there, and they had Dr. Lindsay. She was the second speaker who said, what was interesting is they knew the law was in effect as of that morning, and none of them wore a mask. And it is very clear from them talking that they are very much personally, this is the way they feel. And what was interesting is when we got done with that, almost everybody there, because they had this entire day of all these, not just experts on COVID, but just all these politicians, the consensus was we all have to make a personal decision, no matter what, to not let this go any further and to take back our personal rights and liberties. And so when our state president issued a letter the next morning, but he couched it in cold flu, this, but he is someone who doesn't normally wear a mask. And our bishop is not so people have to make their own choice to push back. That's what Dr. Lindsay said is, in the EU, one more thing, I don't know if you saw what they did yesterday. They're gonna treat this by the EU as they're not gonna keep kids out of school anymore. They're gonna treat it like a cold and virus. They're not gonna encourage boosters. This is from the EU.
Wow.
And that was just announced yesterday, so it's interesting.
Yeah, Mike Lee said the whole premise of this is to undermine the rule of law.
Oh, sure.
It is, and even though, I mean, our favorite senator, Todd Weiler, he's yours, isn't he?
Yes.
He tweets out this morning, everyone in Utah has COVID. So I'm just tweeting back to him going, I don't. And I hope, you know.
Our state senator, or?
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. Todd
Scott?
Weiler.
Oh, Todd Weiler.
Good, because by February, none of us will have it then.
And here's the deal, you guys, they're
look at all the
testing.
traffic.
And then we can be left alone.
So, okay, and I mean, I've got to respond to him. I was driving, so I couldn't, but it's like, I hope that you're doing a deeper dive than just listening to cases, because if you're testing positive and you're not symptomatic, you're not sick.
Ridiculous.
Your body is healthy and has taken care of the virus, okay? So how many of these cases and people, and see, when you test positive, what do they tell you to do? You gotta go home. So what does that mean you have to do? You have to pick up the phone and you have to call work and say, oh, I tested positive for COVID and I'm not sick. Okay? You guys, I had COVID. I never got sick. I have
Then they allow you
antibodies.
back to work, then if you call them up and say, I've got COVID, but I'm not sick, can you go back to work?
No.
No, because
You
right
cannot.
They're
now,
allowing in New York some of the nurses that have COVID
Right.
to go back into the hospital.
If they're asymptomatic, right?
Yeah, it's pretty
See,
wild, isn't it?
the thing is,
Why
they're
would you be
using
tested if you're not
cases to
symptomatic?
control the narrative, to create the fear porn. Oh my gosh, can you imagine? I mean, every cold and flu season in the past history of my life, if you went out and just tested everybody the way they're testing, you'd see the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing is, they're
Well, the flu went away, and now it's just COVID.
right, but they're telling people if you test positive, you must quarantine for 5 days. That's the new thing. It's gone from
Yeah,
10 down.
I know. I
And
did,
so,
I was on the tail
How many of
end.
these people, these school teachers, everyone that's like had a positive, that's why I said, I go, how many are asymptomatic? Are you asking that question?
Well, the bigger picture is they're trying to take down the economy. The United States is the
Right.
last bastion of liberty.
Right, but those
Yeah.
are the things, so what you have to realize is it's up to us to inform our public servants, because public servants aren't educated, okay? Most of them have never been in a Constitution class. A lot of them never read the Constitution or have ever read it. I think there was a survey that said maybe, Pamela, you maybe know this, but like 80% of Congress had never read the Constitution.
They just do what they're.
Well, I
told by
remember
the people.
Evans, he was the
Yeah.
black fellow that was over the Utah's RNC, and he came and spoke to us, and Julene asked him, when was the last time you read the Constitution? And he said it had been about 6 years.
Read it and understood it.
Yeah.
Mike Lee
You know?
carries his pocket one and we first do it every day, so.
Yeah, we should have one in our purse.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Where do you get a pocket one?
okay, so we're gonna switch gears really quickly, because I know Pamela's here, and, but I do want to leave you with this mask mandate. It's important, because what starts in Salt Lake
Kris.
County will spread. Isn't that what happened last year?
Yeah.
Right? All started in Salt Lake County, then pretty soon, other counties like, oh, maybe we should do what they're doing. Oh my gosh, because what if their numbers look worse than ours, and what if we don't, then we'll be held, you know. So it's stamp it out like right away. And you guys, I mean, gosh, there's not a
You wanna
lot
give
of
me
positive things with,
Just one.
oh
Oh.
yeah, sorry, Governor Cox, but he did override the mask mandate for the state office buildings. That's huge. It makes it, you know, and he's promoting, hey, and rightly so, they're promoting the vaccine because they think that's the end of it. Then if it truly is, then no one needs to mask, you know? Because they've all had that opportunity to get vaccinated, right? Those that want to.
But they're also trying to require that if you've had COVID to get vaxxed too. And I don't think that's right either.
Oh, that's harmful.
Originally, they said you
Don't do
had
that.
to wait a period of time
Don't do
because
that
it
at
will
all.
react to it.
Yeah,
Because
Dr.
of cytokine storm.
Yeah, Robert Malone, that's not a good idea. Don't let anybody get vaccinated who's sick.
Well, I was in
See,
the
and-
hospital with COVID and when I left, they said, well, do you want the vaccine? I went,
Oh,
no.
no
Just
kidding.
had it.
No kidding.
I'm
I
better
mean-
vaxxed than you are.
Oh my gosh, I know. So, okay, so now we're gonna switch gears and talk about securing our vote in Utah. So Colette sent out a little 1.22 second video that one of our Liberty moms, I think her name's Stephanie Liberty, cute little mom, made this video that's a cartoon.
It's cute.
Darling.
You said there was a podcast on there too, but I didn't see a link to that.
The podcast did not get linked to it, so we'll send
Oh,
out
I
another
just
email.
forwarded what you sent me. I didn't check, cut and
I
paste.
had to do 2 emails because of how I could, there was only one way for me to send the one email to you, and I couldn't
So
incorporate.
you want me to forward the other one?
Yeah,
Okay,
forward
I'll
the
for-
other one,
I
because
thought
that
I
one
did,
has
but-
the actual podcast.
Okay.
So I recorded a podcast last Thursday with 2
Oh,
ladies.
yes, your podcast,
Yeah.
the Liberty lineup,
The
yeah.
Liberty Moms,
Yeah,
yeah. And
yeah.
so, I mean, you can access it now on the Liberty, Loving Liberty Network. And it is exposing, oh my gosh, I mean, my producer, he goes, my jaw was dropping at the stuff that these ladies were saying, okay? At how hard they are working to make sure that you, the people, or we, the people, do not get access to any information about the last election cycle, okay? And it's very revealing how troubled they are, okay? And so I
They're
if
going
you-
after them. I mean, the two women.
Yes.
They're really being threatened.
Yes,
And
they've had people show up on their door, they've been questioning their neighbors, they've been trying
Over a free and open election.
over
Okay.
collecting grandma requests, which are
like FOIA.
like a FOIA, but in Utah they call them grandma, and that's your public record.
Mhm.
Those are our public documents.
We have
And
the
so-
right to
Yeah,
access.
two moms are trying to access information, and they are being shut down, okay? Big time.
In Utah.
So that should outrage everybody.
Mhm.
Okay, we should be like, excuse me? Like, what are you I mean, if we're really the gold standard, which is what Lieutenant Governor Henderson has said, we're the gold standard. You know, our elections are perfect. We've done it so well for so long. Well, the Heritage Foundation just went through, and again, Heritage is a third party, no bias, they don't care about Utah. They don't have a personal interest in Utah, right? They're just back in DC. They're just a conservative think tank. They went through and evaluated all of the election laws in every single state. And Utah ranked 41st out of 50 with having the worst laws, which means we're the most susceptible to fraud.
Wow.
So even if it hasn't happened, I mean, if you're someone that leaves your keys in the front seat of your car every day and doesn't get stolen, does that mean that's a good idea? Because there's gonna be one day when somebody does take your car. And aren't you gonna be like, holy cats, that was not worth it. That was a consequence that we can't afford, right? We don't want the consequence of what can happen when our elections are taken, right?
Interesting.
Right, exactly. And so, you know, the people that are guarding the hen house may not be the same people you want independently looking at your elections, okay? Because I don't know, they may have something they want to hide, I don't know.
Because it was Sophie, right, that spoke with you?
Sophie and
But
Jennifer.
we might be able to get her to come here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we've got,
Is she in Salt Lake County?
Yeah,
So-
that's fine.
Yeah,
Salt
so
Lake
she's
County.
not that far, yeah.
She isn't that far.
And
but-
Jennifer, I think Jennifer's Salt Lake too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but she would be awesome to tell us really what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah,
okay, we'll reach out to her. And
yeah. So anyway, that should really get you fired up about what the heck, what's going on in Utah, right? Like, I was just talking to a woman yesterday, and she said, well, I moved here from California. I thought Utah was great. And I said, oh, no. I said, no, there's this perceived idea that it is because we're supposedly a red state and we have a predominantly religious legislative body. But I said, no. We have a swamp the same size as that of DC proportionally. I said, we're very, very swampy here in Utah, for sure. So anyway, we asked the legislature if they would help. We had a committee hearing back in October, and the one legislator who was spearheading and producing the evidence that showed that there were irregularities, that we should look further. That's all, let's look further. Don't we want to clear it up? Like if there's something that looks suspicious, let's look at it, right?
Is that Dr. Frank?
Representative Stephen Christiansen.
But he had talked to Dr. Frank. He had
Yes.
gone to the,
Yeah, so he had pulled all of that data and he was presenting it to a committee. I can't remember which one it was, if it was judiciary or public, I can't remember which one. And they basically were like so indignant, like Representative Snow, oh, how dare you accuse our county clerk? Oh, it's so outrageous. These bills and these laws and this plan, this idea of controlling and trying to circumvent our votes have been in the works for decades,
yeah.
okay? It's
So they
not
think
something-
it's the norm,
so,
the usual.
Yeah, so our county clerks, we're not saying that they're part of it, although our county clerk's been a county clerk for decades, so don't know about her. Anyway, but for the most part, the county clerks would be oblivious to this. They would not know. They don't make law. They just get elected, they have a job, and for the most part, they didn't even realize that their machines could be hacked. That was just exposed in 2022. They thought, well, it's not attached to live modem. They didn't realize, well, they can be hacked through the cyberspace. And yeah, and even the one county clerk in Colorado who, wow, brave woman, a Gold Star mom, she went in and did a forensic image of her machines, and they found where a program had been written for her machine that opened up all the security access.
Wow.
So any security codes that were there to be a firewall were written in a program to release those. So now her computer, her machines, her voting machines were just sitting there going, yep, anybody that want to tap into this, you can, okay? So what we want to do moving forward is make sure that our future elections are safe and secure. And most of us in this room are going to be able to remember that at one time you went and voted in your local precinct. You could be the election judge, you could sign up and be a poll watcher, and you could watch the votes being counted that night. You could witness it, and that way everything could then be turned over to the county, and guess what? You could know that night or early morning who won.
Right.
You actually could know that there was an election outcome on election day, and you didn't have to wait 2 weeks. Well, what happens to everybody's ballot and vote and everything? Where's the chain of custody? How do you know that? Like, I'm sitting there going, okay, here's my ballot. I don't know who or where. And plus, I'm sorry, but I'm not cool with my name being on my ballot. It's supposed to be a secret ballot. Do you guys like having your name? And they're going, oh, no, well, we have this little envelope. Blah, blah, blah. Really? Are you in the room where they process the ballots and you pull them out and they're not looking at your name? No, we're not, are we? We don't know. We just have to trust them. Just trust us. What does the Lord say? Do not trust in the arm of the flesh. Right? So we need to go back to a system, and Utah had it. Utah had it for decades. Probably.
Is that where the number 2 pencil and you?
80 plus years where you get a paper ballot and you vote, and it's private, and you put it in the ballot box, and then those ballots are counted that night. And they get a tally, and as many people that want to witness can witness and be part of it, and then it's reported to the clerk, you know? And that's when you have, you can have certified elections.
But what about where there's stuffing? I mean, they could do the same thing with paper, couldn't they just
Well,
go in
you've got
stuff?
You get to be there. You
The
go,
poll watchers.
I want to be there. I want to watch the process. I'm going to volunteer that day, and I'm going to watch to make sure that doesn't happen. Because that can happen.
Yeah.
It's not perfect. But by far, you can't see the grand scale, the large scale of, abuse or irregularities, let's call irregularities, that we saw in 2020,
Where in
right?
some places there were more ballots than there were people that lived in
Right.
that county.
Yes.
Exactly. And honestly, you guys, when I was a county chair, you do not get 90% of the people voting, ever, or 95, ever. You might get, in a presidential election, you might get 70, 75. You don't get 90s, ever, okay? And so,
It's right there in the history of all voting. That should be the biggest red flag, right?
Yeah.
In all the years, back, we have never, and then all of a sudden,
yeah, all of a sudden, wow, everybody,
because they love
100%,
Biden so much.
110% voted.
Yeah, 10 people showed up as a rally, but they
So,
all went to vote.
right.
Did you want to say something, Isabel?
No.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
So we the people, the group of people, they're all from Utah County here, have decided to put forward an initiative because our legislators are not listening to us. Okay? I normally do not like initiatives because it kind of starts creating a path of democracy, but there are times when we don't have our public officials listening to us, and part of that is because we've let them get away with a lot of crap for a long time and not pushed back, right?
Right,
And
and we
so-
are holding big dollars as an individual, right? So the
Right.
people that fund their
The lobbyists, the
campaigns.
whatever,
Yeah.
yeah. So, they have put forward this initiative, so it's to secure our votes going forward. And basically, what they did is they went into Utah code from, I don't remember what year it was, but prior to machines. Because machines are when you see that they can be manipulated, okay? And so prior to the machines, so it's language that we used in Utah for decades, 80 plus years. That was our voting language. So we've taken that, so they can't say, well, this won't work, this hasn't, well, yeah, it did work, okay? And then, another
Oh, there's
thing.
more people now. Yeah, so it's ridiculous.
Well, they did a survey, and if you look at the back of, where is it? Okay, in the gray, what experts say,
Utahns want voting security over convenience.
Yes, yes. There was pollster Richard Barris, so it's on the flag side, the front where they're voting. 88% of Utah voters support in-person voting in local precincts. That's shocking. But see, when they had the opportunity to have it explained, like, this is what can happen, then they are like, oh, because we're always told, oh no, they want it convenient. They won't vote if it's not convenient. It's got to be about convenience.
No.
And it's like, no, security is more important. There's 88% of Utahns that are more concerned about their security overall. And so, and then 88% election integrity over convenience. Okay, so that's the correct quote on that.
And that cute little video clip showed that how many, you have to show your ID for so many different things, but you don't have to show ID for voting. It was crazy.
Right.
So, yeah.
So how many of you like the idea that your ballot is coming to you in the mail? How many of you like vote by mail?
No.
Okay.
It is
And
convenient, but I don't like it because I know what it means.
Okay, so.
It's nice and convenient, but again, the fraud that's.
Yeah.
How many, exactly, so how many of you have stopped that ballot from coming to you in the mail?
How do you do that?
I don't know
Okay,
how.
see, here's the deal. So a couple of podcasts ago, I was reporting, and the county clerks, like, they come back and they go, you know what, everybody loves vote by mail. No one has tried to not get vote by mail. And it's like, excuse me, we weren't told that we had the option to opt out. Were you told you could opt out?
Mm-mm.
I wasn't,
Utah
and-
County has some kind of regulation that all local elections were now vote by mail.
Yeah.
Right,
There
it's all
is
done by
no,
law.
so if you opt
Well-
out, you don't get to vote because they're
Or you
not
can
doing-
still vote, yeah, you can still vote.
How do you
Where?
go to the county courthouse or something?
There's always, yeah, you can always vote, because you can vote on election day.
Okay.
Yeah, they have drops, you can go in and you can surrender your ballot, and they give you like a provisional, or if you have surrendered your ballot, they do have voting on election day, okay? They
They
do.
were
Well, I had
tricky
that-
with that too. Remember, people were like, wait, I didn't vote. They're like, oh, okay, well, we'll give you a provisional ballot, but those never counted.
Right.
They
So-
stripped them.
I had this happen to me though. I knew there was something coming up for a vote, and I went over to the elementary school, and I'm walking around, and there's nothing set up. I can't remember what it was, and I went into the principal's office. It was in the summertime, and I don't know if it was. I don't remember. But anyway, they said, "Oh, well, that was by the mail." And I live in an HOA, so I don't pick my mail up a lot sometimes. And so and then when I went to my box, and it was already too late to mail it in. I'm like, well, this is great. I didn't
Right.
even have a voice.
There's many reasons why, that would be one. Has any of you lost anything in the mail?
Oh.
Am I the only one that's had mail lost? Yeah, like your ballot could be lost.
Because only
You don't get
the
it.
honest people care. So I have 3 people living in my house, and I get 6 ballots, and I love it. And so why would I want to change that? I'm like, good, I'll take 6 ballots.
Right. Now, it's illegal.
No, I don't do anything wrong. It's
Yeah.
the people come, the young
Yeah.
men come to my house and they say, how do you want me to vote, Sister Klein line?
Right.
So they sign it, and I tell them how to vote. I'm good
Yeah.
with that.
So,
But why would a criminal want to change that if they're getting it?
exactly. Well, that's a great, why are they fighting? Why is our governor and lieutenant governor fighting this? Why
Right.
are they fighting this?
Right.
I
Because they
mean,
probably know they didn't win.
they, she,
It's a cost issue.
she
for
dragged
them.
her feet.
Yeah, I
Well,
heard that.
That's what they said, but that's not,
I don't believe it.
we have the cost
That it's
issues
more
on this
expensive for
initiative that
in-person
you're looking
voting?
at, but it's not valid. They've gone through and it's about, they say it's about 6s by the time it's all done. Because they're not giving you the true cost of those machines and those upgrades, and it's done every election cycle. Okay, they're not going through and doing that, but regardless, here's the deal. We have, again, I have to have a vote by mail. That's what they're doing. We didn't question it. We have it. They said, well, do you want your vote by mail? Do you want your vote in the mail? I don't.
If voting is important, you'll go there. I have voted, even when it's not
Exactly.
fun, for 40 years or whatever it is, I used to go there. Now it's in the
So-
mail. But I've always said, but you might not get as many people out, but it's not important to them if they don't go.
the thing is, how hard would it have been for them on the first ballot you get in the mail, at the bottom that says, if you no longer want your ballot in the mail, you can opt out at this phone number, this email address, call your county clerk, whatever. How hard would that have been? They've got all this information on your ballot. They give you an insert with more information. Did any of that information tell you how you can refuse the ballot by mail? No. But then they turn around and use that. See, this is coercion. They use that to say, no one's complaining. Everyone loves it. Okay? So, everyone in this room, if you really do not like your vote floating around in the mail system, your ballot, then you just need to write a little email, and right now you're going to be learning how to keep track of your documents. You do it by email because then you have public record. You have your own record with the clerk, and you just send them a little email and educate them in the process. Okay, so my email said something to this effect. Wow, I just learned about all the potential fraud that could happen with mail-in ballots. That's horrifying. My vote is very important to me. Please cease and desist mailing anything through the U.S. mail, my ballot in the U.S. mail anymore. Stop it.
Plus, the post office has been colluding.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, there's fraud in the post office.
That's what I alluded to. That's
Yeah.
all I said. So I educated them. This is why I want it. When you just say, hey, see, our job is to educate. We have to educate our public servants. See, because they're not educated. They don't know. So you tell them, this is why I want my ballot stopped. There is huge potential for fraud having my ballot in the mail. I no longer want that to happen. And so 24 hours later, I got an email back saying, okay, your ballot will no longer be mailed to you. Guess what? I have to show up to vote now. And I'm okay with that. I want to. I don't want a ballot floating around.
What about this early voting?
I don't like that either.
Yeah, I think that's a potential for fraud as well.
I don't know what they did on the early voting in the bill per se. I should look at that. But what they did do, which is really good, is right now there's a 22-month limit on when they can do when they retain election records. So right now when they say, oh, you're so worried about Trump, you're so worried, why is, blah, 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 and it's like, it's the only data we have. We only have election data from 2020. We can't go back to 2018. It's been destroyed. You can't go back to 2016. It's been destroyed. So what's the most recent election that we could even look at is 2020.
Mm-hmm.
But see, they use that to
As
accuse you of being a
Trump.
Trumper. Oh, you're just for Trump and you're just that. And it's like, no, actually, it's the only election data we have. Okay, so we know he won in Utah, but according to other sources, he won by quite a bit more than what our county clerks reported. Okay? And so, but regardless, moving forward, if any of you have read through any bills, if you've gone through bill files or bills during the legislative session, whenever you make a change, even if it's one sentence, they print out the whole thing. And then one sentence is